Nice to
Great.
meet
How are you?
you.
Nice to meet you. Thank
I'm
you so
good.
much for doing this.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So our podcast is about your journey in the music industry and how you got to where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
So Joy,
Great.
tell me about where'd you grow up?
I was born and raised in Berlin, West Berlin. I was born when the wall was still there. And I actually grew up right behind the wall or right in front of it. It depends on how you want to look at it. So I grew up
Wow.
in the west part of the city. And yeah, so I grew up in an area which is quite popular today. It wasn't so much back then. It's called Kreuzberg, Cross
Uh-huh.
Hill, if you will.
What made it popular now? Is that where the wall was
um,
taken down?
No, I mean it got more and more popular because a lot of people who didn't want to stay in the small towns where they grew up moved to Berlin, and because it was so cheap, because it was an immigrants kind of area or
Mhm.
district, a lot of people like Williamsburg, for instance,
Oh, sure.
moved there because they could afford it, and they brought a lot of art and creativity into the area, and so it developed into something even more interesting, more
Mhm.
diverse.
That's awesome. Well, how did you get into music?
Um, I got in touch with music quite early when I was very young through my father. My father was a big record collector, and he would play a lot of music for us all. And he was a soul, jazz, and funk lover. So we would actually grow up with that music. It was actually the first music that I could relate to. And, you know, in Germany, we do have like a huge German speaking market, but
Mhm.
I was exposed to it quite late actually, because we never listened to German speaking music at home.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
What were you listening to songs in English?
Excuse me?
What were you listening to? Songs in English?
Of course, only songs in English. Yeah,
Oh, only
English,
songs in English.
English. And I mean, there were like some South African records that my father bought. He's South African. So there were some songs in Xhosa, in Zulu, you know, like African, South African languages,
Uh-huh.
but predominantly English records. Yeah. So, and
Right
I
on.
fell in love with music, and I think I didn't know back then, but I mean, retrospectively, I would say I was the one child that would spend a lot of times in front of his record collection. So my parents had 6 kids.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so I was the one who would always pull out the records and play them, and I was interested in music. And I guess that was my first getting in touch with music and soul and funk and jazz music in general.
And then when did you learn that you could actually sing really well?
Very late, very,
Oh,
very,
really?
very late. Because, you know, see, I mean, on one hand, my parents were like big music lovers, but on the other hand, they wouldn't really talk to me about a talent or anything that they could hear. Because, I mean, imagine I would sing every day, all day, but nobody really told me, oh, wow, Joy, your voice sounds interesting or different or maybe special. So I had to become a teenager, and I had to be surrounded by friends who would listen to me singing, and they would like tell me every now and then, wow, your voice is interesting, maybe you should try something. But then also remember, that was a time when there was no home studio recording stuff at all.
Hmm.
Like you either had a record deal or not, and
Yeah.
without a record deal you had no access to no studio or anything in that direction. So I didn't really know how to handle that whole situation until I met a friend who knew a band, and they were looking for a singer. And then he said, hey, you know
Oh.
what, maybe Joy, you should go try yourself out and take the mic and see how you feel about it. And that's what I did. And I think I was 19. So I would say for an American career, or let's say for a career these days in general, it's super late.
Hmm.
19
Oh,
years
because of
starting to,
19. Yeah, but
it's
you
like
look at a
a lot of,
19-year-old.
you know.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you met a friend who told you that you should join this band. And was
Mhm.
this band already established? Were they playing? They just needed a
Yeah, yeah,
vocalist?
they were like a real diverse kind of band. We had two guys, two brothers actually. They were German and another German. Then we had one guy from Eritrea, one from Jamaica, and then we had myself. So it was quite diverse. And super open, and it was like it was like a reggae, soul, funk kind of band.
Mm-hmm.
And really, those are like my baby steps. I am there, and I'm trying to get a hold of my voice and understand how how to write a song, how to feel in a band, how to look at arrangements, the worth of arrangements, all these things, like they happen very slowly and naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that band, I went to another one. And that was already a time, maybe a year later, I was really thinking about studying vocal singing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's like a very popular university in Berlin. It's called Hans Eisler. And I already applied for how do you say, a study?
Oh yeah, like you applied for college or whatever. Or...
I applied for college,
Yeah.
exactly. So I applied for college, and around that time I was playing in a band, and the drummer of the band, he already finished his college, and he had to do a last show, like a show in public for the whole university, and I was the singer.
Oh wow.
And then I sang for him, and me and the band for him. And then after that, the students came up to me, and that was like the weirdest moment and a turning point, because up until then I was pretty sure I would go to college and study singing and all of that, jazz and blah blah.
Uh-huh.
And then the students came up to me, and then they started talking to me about technique, breathing, all these things that were super abstract to me. And they were trying to find out, what is my technique? And I was just sitting there thinking, I have no particular technique at all. And then I told them, and they said, that's impossible. That's impossible. You must know, you must have a secret. And I was like, no, and I tried to tell them, I just like try to express my feelings. And I'm trying to follow my intuition. And that was the turning point, because I understood, if these students are going to be my colleagues for the next 4 years, maybe the way I sing. And don't get me wrong, I didn't think I was a great singer back then. I don't think I'm a great singer now, but what I was, but I was thinking, hey, you know, I just found my voice. I just found out about my tone, and I wasn't ready to give it up in an academic world. So I just let it slide and decided I'm going to stay. How do you say in English? Autodidactical? Like if you teach yourself?
Right. Yeah. Autodidactable.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, because I mean, at that point, if you're performing with your friend, he's good. That was his final project. He was the drummer for the band. Okay. And these students are coming up to you, asking you about technique and everything. At that point, you're probably like, well, why do I need to go if these kids that are about to finish are asking me about how to sing? Right? Is it kind of like, you could just jump that step, so to speak?
I mean, but also I was afraid that teachers would maybe like unlearn me how to sing, or learn me the way of singing in a way that I wouldn't maybe identify with. You know what I mean? It was not
like
so
almost
much that,
like trying to teach you certain techniques that might affect what you were already doing.
Exactly. It was more that. It was not so much, hey, I already know how to sing, I don't need it. No. It was rather, you know, the idea of, or, you know, the fear of somebody like unlearning me what I have learned until then.
Right.
Because they wanted to install something that's very academic, very technical. And so I passed on that one and said, no, thank you.
Yeah, that was probably a really good decision. Who knows, like what they could have turned your voice into, you know, doing that. Yeah, that's interesting. So you decide not to go to college. And then what happened from there?
And then I stumbled over a person that I grew up with, and she remembered that I sang all the time as a little girl, maybe around the age of 9, 10. And she by then was married to a manager, artist manager. And she was asking me, hey, Joy, do you still sing? I haven't seen you in years. And I said, yeah, matter of fact, I do. And she said, can I introduce you to my husband? He started his management company, and he's looking for talent, and maybe you're interested. So I went there and I sang for them, like super random. I just in the office, and then they said, "Oh wow, interesting, great. Can we sign you?" And that was
Wow.
also, yeah, that was also interesting because my parents, specifically my father, he supported me, you know, loving music and singing in bands, but he was not so fond of the idea that his daughter would not go into like an academic career. He
Sure.
was thinking medicine, he was thinking lawyer, you know.
Right. Of course.
And so and and also because in Germany the market was super different from the American market. Like I said before, you know, only the big artists really, you know, had a career. You didn't really have people from Berlin, young kids from Berlin signing record deals. That was like absolutely rare. I
Hmm.
mean, it was actually not existent. So I think it was abstract for my parents to imagine that their little girl from Berlin could sign a record deal and become successful. And when this manager offered me a deal, that was like a diploma kind of thing for me. So I could
Sure.
go to my parents and say, look, mommy, daddy, people think I have talent and it's going to be official from now on. And so I signed a record deal, and then I was pretty much caught up in a situation that was also interesting because they put me together with two other girls,
Hmm.
and they sort of created a project around me, which was called Joy, Sugar and Cream. And it was nothing that was created naturally, but they just put it together. They put a band together, like a girl group kind of
Right. Yeah. It was
concept.
almost like a pop group that they kind of threw you guys
Exactly.
together. Sure. Okay.
Exactly. And I think they were trying to be nice to me, and they were trying to lean in as much as possible, and they tried to like make me happy. So they made me produce a soul pop project. But you know what? At the end of the day, I didn't feel comfortable. I mean, the people around me, I was surrounding myself with, you know, on festivals and stuff, they were like super great, nice people. I met NSYNC, I met the Backstreet Boys. Like it was that kind of world, yeah.
That's cool.
And
Yeah.
they were very successful in Germany. They were like super large before they started becoming successful in the States.
Oh, is
So
that
their
right? I
whole,
didn't know that.
yeah,
So
their
they
whole
would.
success, I think, yeah, it started off in Germany, Europe, then United States, even though they're American.
Interesting.
And yeah, so
I
we
knew
were
that about
surrounded.
like bands like the Killers and stuff like that, where they had more of that Brit sound, but they're from the
Hmm.
States. But I didn't
Yeah,
know that about the Backstreet Boys. How interesting.
yeah, yeah. They were, yeah, they became so large, and they were nice. Don't get me wrong. All of them were super nice and friendly and very creative and stuff. But I just didn't feel comfortable within my own project. So I there was this one A&R. He didn't really know what to do with me
Hmm.
musically, but I think he liked me a lot. And so he asked me, what is it that I can do to make you happy, Joy? And I said, you know what? I just want to make real music. That's all. And I don't know how to get back to that because now I'm caught up in a record deal that doesn't make me happy. So
Hmm.
I'd like to rather quit than continuing doing something that I just don't like. And so he said, you know what, I am going to send you to a city where there are great musicians, and maybe you can get to know them and see how you feel about it. And so he sent me to a very small town in Germany, which is called Stuttgart.
Okay.
Stuttgart is like in the south of Germany. And that was a city when hip hop started to become popular in Germany. German speaking hip hop. So
Hmm.
hip hop with German lyrics. That was like the 90s, late 90s.
Okay.
And Stuttgart was one of the main capitals for that. You had all these crazy MCs and musicians hanging out in Stuttgart, which also has to do with the fact that um, the the American military was stationed there.
Oh,
Yeah, so you
interesting.
had the allies. You had the four allies. The wall was there. The wall
Hmm.
came down, and because we had the wall, we had like the four forces. We had Russians, we had French people, we had Americans, and we had English people. So the French, the English, and the American were stationed on the west side of Germany, and the Russians were stationed on the east side of Germany. So a lot of American GIs and stuff were in all kinds of cities in Germany, also in Stuttgart. So that that was a big impact for the musical scene, because you had all these Americans, GIs, who were also musicians, aside of being soldiers. So that was a huge impact on the scene. And yeah.
That's
Isn't
really
that
interesting. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So that's how the hip hop influence kind of got into to Germany, was through the people stationed there.
Well, I mean, first of all, not only the people stationed there, also MTV, and and I mean, I guess, you know, hip hop was like a new music, and it was like a free music, and it was like was so interesting, and Germany was a huge music market. So a lot of records, I think Germany is the third strongest market in the world, and always has been. So it's Germany and probably England, and then the States. So we were a very important market for all the American groups as well to be released, and here in Germany. So we knew a lot about everything that was going on in the States. And specifically because hip hop was like new music, it certainly found its way to Germany, and it certainly found its way to me. And then, well, when I was in Stuttgart, I was happy again. And to make a long story short, I quit my record deal. Wow. I got signed by another great record company that helped me getting out of my first contract. I met my husband. I mean, the guy that became my husband today, still is. And we started making music the way we like to make music. And then I think in 2001 or 2, I released an album that was like a milestone for myself, I would like to say. And it was probably very interesting for the German music market, because I think up until then, there was no Black singer or musician who would make a political statement about being Black in Germany, or let's say being a minority in a white majority. So that was like super interesting and pretty successful. And from then on, I knew I was in the right place. And ever since then, I've been making music that I love.
Wow. So that was that first record, the album that you said that you wrote. Were you in like you were talking about hip hop? I'm trying to follow. So you got to where you're meeting these musicians, you got into hip hop, and then you met you met the person that became your husband and this record label. Were you working with the hip hop artists and somebody?
Yeah, a lot.
How did you get, like, how did they find you to get signed and all that?
Okay. I'm going to tell you in detail. I mean, first of all, hip hop is a music that started way before I went to the small city that I just told you about.
Sure.
I think it started when I was 14. I realized, okay, there is hip hop music. And ever since then, I was really falling in love with the music, because for so many reasons, musically, but also because for the first time in my life, I saw Black protagonists being superstars. And that to me was new, aside from Whitney Houston. I thought that was new. Right. So it had a very deep impact on my identity or soul searching. And then when I went to Stuttgart, I would work with all these musicians who partly played in bands for hip hop musicians or produced records for hip hop musicians.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but also produced music for me. And my husband, he is a rapper. He was very famous at that time, and I already knew their band.
Okay.
I already knew them, and I was a fan of his music. But I didn't really think of anything when we met, because I knew how he looked like, and I thought he was handsome and stuff, but there was no further interest aside from making music. And then we met and we fell in love very quick. And then we had a song together that became a huge hit in Germany. And yeah, I mean, ever since then, I've been surrounding myself with musicians only who wanted to make the music that they love 100%. And a lot of them were MCs. And because I was the girlfriend to a hip hop MC who was already having a successful band, I was jumping on their tour bus, and he invited all his rapper friends, and so we were like a huge big band. And maybe there were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 male protagonists, and then maybe me, and maybe sometimes another girl. But yeah, so yeah, that was it.
Wow. And then from there, you're signed to a label, and then what happens next for you? You put out your debut record, and it does really well.
What happened? Yeah. What happens next is I put out my debut record, which was produced by my husband, which is also a crazy story because up until then he was like mainly a vocalist. I mean, he was a rapper. And then he started producing the record, which was crazy because he has never done that before. But the way the record came out, I mean, maybe you want to go and take a listen, just production-wise, after our conversation, because I think still today it's pretty crazy. And he had this vision to work with musicians from all over. So we started working with, there was a trumpet player who passed away last year, a South African trumpet player, pretty much a legend. I think he also did something with Cannonball Adderley and stuff. And he used to be married to Miriam Makeba. His name is Hugh Masekela. And so we went to South Africa and recorded something with him. And I mean, he just showed me that music has no limits, and you can do whatever you like. Nobody can tell you where to stop if not yourself.
And you have a new record coming out now, right? From
Yes.
Okay, so you put out this debut. Your husband produced it. Did he produce any of your other records?
Yeah, he did. Like he did another one. It's called Born and Raised, and we went to Philadelphia, and that was pretty funny. So we worked with James Poyser. Have you heard of him? Oh, okay. Yeah. So we worked with great musicians from Philly, and he also produced that record and another one. But for this one, the upcoming one, he did not produce it. He was not involved. I produced it with another guy. His name is Roberto Di Gioia, and that was pretty much a journey that I loved.
Was that the first time you had been to the States? Like, or had you performed in the States at that point?
No, I mean, it was not the first time I had been to the States. I've been there several times before, but it was the first time producing a record there, and we stayed there for 3 months. We went there to get the record done. We wrote it here, we composed it here, and then with the demos that I recorded, we went to Philly and got the job done. And that was an interesting, amazing time. I really loved it there. And there's a string arranger. Have you heard of Larry Gold? Yeah, so he did the strings for it, and yeah, it was just an amazing experience.
And you got to work with Raekwon on that record too, huh?
Yeah, that was a funny story because.
How'd you meet him?
How did I meet him? Because okay, well, there were just contacts, and we could get a hold of him. But the way I went up to him, so he knew. I don't know, the manager that I used to work with, he just made it happen so that I could have an audience in the studio where he worked in New York. And the way I approached him was interesting because when I wrote the song that he jumped on, Heaven or Hell, I had him in mind because he did a song once with the Wu-Tang Clan, which is called Heaven and Hell. And I used the same sample that they have used.
Oh, okay.
And that was my way of like getting in touch with him. And maybe it was a mixture of me being naive, but also super confident at the same time. So I went up to him and I said, I know you don't know me. I know you have never heard of me. And it might sound weird to you, but I'm about to play a song for you. And I'm promising you right now, you will jump on it right afterwards. And he was looking at me like, who is this crazy lady?
Right.
But I mean, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. I played the song for him, and he was, I think he didn't expect that. But it you know,
Right.
it
Yeah. He probably
also,
doesn't have a lot of people saying, "Hey, you're gonna love this song and want to jump on it." You know what
yeah.
I mean? Yeah. To have that
I,
confidence.
it was also like a love, how do you say, a love tribute. I mean, it was
Hmm.
my tribute to Wu-Tang Clan as well. So I also honored him and the Wu-Tang Clan with the version, because I jumped on a sample that they used, and yeah, I just flipped it a little bit. So yeah, that was that.
And then the record after that, you put it out in German, right? So the first record you did was in German, or was it?
Hmm.
Yeah. And then the second album you did, that one that has Raekwon, is in English, right? And then
Exactly.
you went back to putting out an album in German. What was the reasoning behind that?
Not really a reason. And see, the thing was, after the Born and Raised record, I recorded the Maureen album, which I wrote in English. It was written in English
Oh, it
first.
was.
And there's also an English version, which is actually the first version, but just nobody really knows. And then once the English version of Maureen album was finished, somebody asked me, won't you sit down for a minute and translate it? And I was like, translating? What do you mean? It's not easy to translate just like that. And but it was a challenge, and I sat down and I surrounded myself with great writers who helped me to translate the record into German lyrics.
Do you enjoy performing the German lyric songs, or is
Yeah,
it difficult,
yeah,
like doing, like when you play the States, for example? Do you, or prominently like English speaking country, do you
yes.
play only the English songs, or do you play both?
I would now and then like throw in some German songs just to make people look at me like, what is she talking about? Um, but I feel confident. I mean, not confident. That sounds so arrogant. I feel good in both languages,
Okay.
because certainly English is not my mother tongue, but it's the language that taught me music. Because,
Hmm.
like I said in the beginning, everything that I heard was music that was English lyrics, and had English lyrics. And then I also feel comfortable singing German because that's my mother tongue. I have a very natural feeling towards the language German.
Hmm.
So to me, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter if it's in German or English.
Mm-mm.
But so half of, it looks like about over half of your records are in German, right? Only the latest one and the second album.
English.
Yeah.
I mean, the first is in German.
Uh-huh.
The second is English. The
English.
third is German and English. The fourth is German, and the
German.
fifth is English. So
Yeah.
it's pretty much balanced out, I would say.
Yeah, okay. So the new record is in English.
Mm.
What, and was there a reason to decide to go back to writing in English, or you just
Yeah, it was pretty much it had to do with the concept of the record, because
okay.
at some point I was thinking I'd like to make a soul record that is as close as possible towards the original soul that I grew up with. And for me, it was not a question whether the record should be written in German or English. Of course, it had to be written in English, because
Hmm.
you might be able to translate a record from one language to another if you really concentrate on it. But, every language has its own melody. And to me, soul music is deeply connected towards the language,
Hmm.
because the English melody, yeah, creates a certain musical melody when you're writing.
Hmm.
So I think it would have been unnatural for me to think of a soul album, like an original kind of soul album with German lyrics. I don't know. Mm-mm.
Yeah. You don't feel like it would work too well. And you've released a couple videos for this new song,
Mm-hmm.
or the new record coming out. It comes out on
Friday.
Friday. How excited are you for
Yay.
that?
I am so excited. Can I show you? Look at
Yes.
that. It just came, it just,
Oh, awesome. That looks
My
great.
vinyl. My
Is that your
vinyl,
first?
vinyl.
That's oh wow, that's rad.
Isn't it nice?
That is nice, and I like it's
Yeah.
how it's the open one and not the flat. Like
Yeah, me too. The double vinyl.
yeah, the double. Yeah, that's cool. That is very cool.
Yeah.
Comes out on Friday. And you've released a couple songs off of it so far. Is it going to be
Hmm.
strange releasing it on right now because we're all kind of quarantined in?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And that was also an aspect that we discussed, whether we should release it now or not.
Mm-hmm.
But then I decided to release it because I mean, if I would have held it back, for how long would I
Right.
have had to hold it back? We don't know what the future brings. And at the same time, I have the feeling that we as artists, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility towards society,
Mm-hmm.
so towards our listeners and viewers, but we also have a responsibility towards the team we're working with. Because
Mm-hmm.
I have the feeling that a lot of times the consumer thinks, oh, okay, here are the artists, or this is the band, and that's it. But behind us, there are so many people depending on us, and vice versa,
Mm-hmm.
that I thought impossible for me to just not do anything, impossible for me to let the team down. So I decided, yes, we're going to release it, and it hurts a lot that I cannot be on the road,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's an album that should be played live a lot. And I love live playing. I love doing concerts and singing in front of people. But I mean, I guess that's what it is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do?
Yeah, I know. Just kind of wait it out and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like the video for Top of My Love, that looks like it's like a live version, or you guys are
Yes.
playing like live. Tell me, was that
Mhm.
shot during quarantine or right before?
It was during quarantine, and we decided to record a concert session, because usually when you're doing an album campaign, before you start the campaign, you would like do showcases, right? You
Sure.
showcase your album for the media partners and the record labels and the journalists and stuff, and because we knew that was not going to happen, we decided, okay, maybe we can do a concert and stream it for all the partners, and so they know what's about to come. And luckily we could perform in a venue, in a venue that was big enough for us to play with the distance that we had to hold. And so we recorded it and streamed it live then. So, and then we decided not to stream it for the partners, but for the
Whole.
whole world.
Cool. So you did the whole stream, the whole show.
Yes.
Wow. And aside from that, have you done any other like Instagram live performances to promote the record?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I have. And I have also played another show like that, which was recorded in a very huge venue.
Oh,
And that's
really? Tell me
okay.
about that.
Hmm?
Yeah. Was that
I mean,
to an empty room again?
excuse
Like,
me?
was that also during quarantine? Like, did you have to play
Yes,
to like
yes, yes,
an
yes,
empty
yes.
room?
Yes, it was during quarantine. And you know what's funny? So, uh, because the lockdown was over, but we're still in quarantine,
Mm-hmm.
we had the possibility to invite 6 fans, like 6 people. 6 people could
Six
could
people could
join
go.
could join the show. And it was a live stream, and it was like, the way it was produced, it was like a huge production which was sponsored by a huge sponsor, so everything was perfect and
Uh-huh.
big time. And I knew it was a live stream, and I loved every second about it. But guess what? I only concentrated, and I actually only played for the 6 people sitting there in this huge hall, because I thought, this is what it's about. Music is about connecting with other people. Music is about love. Music is about strength and togetherness. And I felt the unity in a way that I cannot describe. These 6 people made my day.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
just played to them, and the rest of the room
Mhm.
was the whatever was captured was captured. I
They
love
attended.
that. Yeah, right.
Attended. Yeah.
I actually spoke with somebody last week or the week before that's in a band and they were playing in Germany, like a show.
Oh wow.
You know that's happening there? Have you heard of this?
I have heard of it.
Okay.
There are new concepts. I mean, a lot of people are trying to find new concepts to play live. So for instance, what we are doing at the moment is we have a huge venue. Let's say the capacity of 1,000. I mean, it's like a middle venue, but let's say capacity of 1,000, and then you seat only 300. So it's a third that can come in. You cannot sell out the show. You cannot sell out the house, but you can let 300 people in. And then sometimes what they do is they're trying to play 2 shows a night, 2 sets a night. So 60 minutes.
That's smart.
For 300 people, then they leave. The next 300 come in and get another 60 minutes. But the concerts are shorter, right? Because you can never play like a full
3 hours
show twice in a row. Like that's impossible. I mean, physically and fitness wise. So yeah, there are some concepts that are tried out at the moment, but only I guess to get over this crazy time that we are all in.
Yeah, I know.
It's not. I don't think it's a proper concept for the future at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's sustainable at all either. Like you said, if only 300 people can come in to 1,000, so instead of selling 1,000 tickets, you're only selling like 600, but you're doing twice the work. And yeah, I know it'll be interesting.
You're doing twice the work, but also the people who do the venue, they have still the rent to pay for the venue, you know.
Yeah,
and they have like the security that has to come. Like it's so many things. That's what I was trying to tell you earlier, or the audience, that one artist, one band, there are so many people involved to make things happen, and that's like a coexistence. We need each other, and we need the fans. We need the fans to buy tickets, to like invest into the art, because if that doesn't happen, then I guess the art will die at some point, or it will become a very monocultural thing. And so I'm just hoping that people have time and the capacity to think about that, and maybe hopefully we can survive, you know?
Right, everyone needs to just wear your mask, stay away from everybody for a bit, and hopefully this will all just kind of end and everyone get back to normal.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I know. Well, Joy, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate your time. I have one more question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Stay true to who you are. Don't never forget. No, I guess, you know, I think we all have an inner voice, all of us. And I guess we are surrounding ourselves a lot of times with a lot of noise. I mean, metaphorically, a lot of noise. And that makes it hard for us to hear our own voice. But I think that the own voice is a lot of times super right, very right. So try to find your voice within yourself and listen to it. Trust yourself. Trust yourself and trust what inspires you. Trust what makes you feel good and touches you in your soul. If you can make music that touches your soul, then you're doing the right thing. Bring it backward.